Welcome back. You are watching Newscentre. Let's shift our focus to road safety. The recent death of Cyrus Mistry in a road accident has once again raised questions about vehicle and structural safety of roads in the country. Remember, 1.5 lakh deaths take place in road accidents every year. Joining me now to take this forward is Vijay, Chhibber, former Secretary of Road Transport and Highways in the central government. Mr. Chhibber, thank you very much for joining us. Do you think this recent action taken by the government to urge car makers to have rare seatbelt reminders or seatbelt reminders for all front-facing passengers, 6 airbags in cars, speed alerts as well, do you think this is a step in the right direction, considering the fact that 45% of the accidents on the road are involving two-wheelers?
Yes, you may be right statistically in terms of two-wheeler accidents, etc. But, you know, my real concern is that we seem to discuss issues relating to road safety only when there is a major event like the one you just mentioned, the unfortunate death of Cyrus Mistry. But, you know, this is a far more serious subject, and one has to peg away at this consistently. Road safety is actually becoming a public health emergency in the country for the last many years. I retired about 7 years back, and there's a sense of deja vu because this is exactly what we were discussing while I was in office, and we are back in the same situation today. Rather than getting into the nitty-gritty of should the rear passengers be required to have the seatbelt, should there be an alarm, etc., we had actually, way back in 2014 itself, decided that whatever is the road safety architecture in terms of norms that the EU notifies, we shall follow suit, maybe with a lag of 3 to 4 years, to enable the industry to pick up in terms of manufacturing capacities, etc. So, you know, this debate whether we should have this, we should not have it, I think this is completely trash. We should just adopt what are the best practices globally. And the European model is reasonably robust, reasonably thought through. And I don't really see the industry having any grouse in this. The industry falls in line very quickly. It's a question of some additional costs here and there. But what my major concern is that despite the high level of deaths that you mentioned, and it's not only deaths, it's 4 or 5 times the numbers for those who are injured. You know, that also has its own financial and other costs. So the real issue is the political establishment really recognizing this as a public health concern and public health issue, which is serious enough where political capital should be put behind it? I say this because those countries like France and the US, who've managed to control and even bring down the fatalities, have managed to do this only when the political leadership actually caught the bull by the horns. I don't see that happening in our geography, and I think that's a great pity.
So do you think, sir, the problem is enforcement, lack of awareness, lack of attention? As you said, and this is what several car makers have also said, that it's no problem meeting these norms. Maybe with an extended timeline we can, but the problem is if you take this action only when there is a high-profile incident.
You're absolutely right, Parikshit. This is really so there are 3 pillars, basically. It's education, it's the engineering part in terms of the physical infrastructure, and lastly, enforcement. We seem to be very casual in terms of enforcement. Chalta hai attitude is across the board. I remember on an official visit to Australia, myself and one of my colleagues, we landed at the airport. The embassy had sent us a big limousine to pick us up. Chauffeur was there, the liveried chauffeur, and we got in the usual way. We were busy talking about whom we were to meet and what we were to discuss. But this gentleman, he got into the front seat and he said, "Sir, please put on your seat belts." So we sort of casually said, yes, we are doing it. You get on with we were in a bit of a hurry as the flight was late. Well, this guy said, "Sir, I will not be able to start the engine until your seat belts are on." Here was a guy dedicated to his job, very clear that this is something which shall get done. It's the lack of this rigor which is actually the major concern and a possible cause of many of the fatalities that we are having and the numbers that you just mentioned. So I think I agree with you. Enforcement is something which has to have a rigor and a consistency.
Okay, and my final question, sir, do you also feel that the government must also be tougher with the industry? A lot of times there are divisions within the industry on what should be the road ahead, whether there should be an extended timeline when it comes to 6 airbags. Do you think that that extra time should be given, or these are things which have been in the offing for many years now, and these are global standards?
So that's why, Parikshit, I mentioned to you, I'm a little amazed that these debates are still being conducted, because as I said, way back in 2014 itself, we had decided that whatever is mandated in the EU framework by way of rules and regulations which impact road safety, those shall get notified with a lag of maybe 3 to 4 years. The lag was to account for the fact that the industry has to get their technologies in and to allow them to adapt to the changing requirements. But there was no doubt in our minds that whatever is mandated in the European geography shall get implemented here. The real problem is, even if you have a seatbelt, are you putting it on? And is there an enforcement to ensure that you are putting it on? I think it's the last part, the enforcement, which is very, very important. And it is in this context that I was mentioning that, for example, the Prime Minister went hammer and tongs about the Swachh Abhiyan program. And I think he expended a lot of political capital, which paid dividends, because the entire country, all the state governments, all the district administrations, similar needs to be evolved in the context of road safety. We can't have only Mr. Gadkari trying his best to educate the Indian population. I think it requires an all-embracing effort by government, perhaps led by the Prime Minister himself. And I'm sure that there would be dividends if the kind of mobilization takes place.
All right. So you're saying we need to put political capital behind it. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Chhibber. The automotive industry, as we said earlier, has been seeking more time to implement the new norms. Let's get an view from Vikram Kirloskar, the Vice President of Toyota India. I began by asking him about his reaction to recent vehicle safety norms mandated by the government.
Well, I think government has acknowledged an issue of road safety, not just because of the recent sad accident, but Mr. Gadkari has been continuously harping on road safety and the number of deaths in India, and he's been trying his best to introduce more and more regulations on vehicles. But this is a holistic issue I think we have to look at. It's not just the vehicle alone. Of course, the vehicles have to be safe, have to meet global international standards on safety, but we have to look at the entire ecosystem, the quality of the roads, the training of the drivers, behavior of people who are driving cars, behavior of people and other people who are driving cars on the road, that everyone follows rules and regulations. I think it's an understanding, holistic understanding of safety requirement that is very important.
Right. Now, when it comes to road safety in India, which aspect needs immediate addressing, according to you, Mr. Kirloskar?
It is all aspect. If you've driven on a highway, you see people overtaking left, right, center. These are fundamental traffic rule issues, and fundamental safety driving issues. I mean, I think we have to educate everyone in this country and take an understanding that safety is important, and some of it is just commonsensical. It's maturity of driving. It's not all dependent on the car. It's depending on the attitude of the driver towards safety. It's the attitude of the pedestrian towards safety. It's the whole ecosystem. I think if you look at about 25 years ago, when Toyota first came in the country, and I was talking with some of the Japanese my partners on safety, they said, how do you address safety when you see people driving on sitting on top of a bus or sitting on top of a train, then you know it's obviously not safe. So we keep doing programs across the country. We've been doing it for several years, right from school children onwards, to have a holistic understanding of safety. And I think that's very, very important that on a society basis, we start understanding safety.
Okay, and when it comes to some of these initiatives that vehicle manufacturers will have to make, be it 6 airbags or be it a 3-point safety, 3-point seat belt or seat belt reminders, do you think this will be difficult for the industry to implement, or only the timeline is an issue?
I don't want to talk about the industry. About our own company, we've started implementing it about 10 years ago. We took a stand, Toyota took a stand 10, 12 years ago that he wants all vehicles to be of global safety standards, irrespective of the country standard.
All right, so that was Vikram Kirloskar saying that they are following European standards, and they have higher safety standards for their vehicles for the last 10 years or so. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Centre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.